This podcast is brought to you by Contessa Digital.
Maybe it's just me, but one of the things that I cannot stand hearing as a dating coach is, oh my goodness, relationships are so hard. Because don't get me wrong, I get it. We all have struggles when it comes to our relationships, whether they're romantic or friendships, family members, all of that. That is why I became a dating and relationship coach, because I wanted to help women excel and succeed in their lives. And I knew that when it comes to living a successful, happy life, relationships tend to be that biggest domino, right? If you gain some control in that area, everything else falls into place. At the same time, there's so much talk about relationships and dating hacks and how to make someone fall in love with you and how to keep a man and all of that, when the truth is, being in a happy and healthy relationship is pretty simple. That doesn't mean it's easy, but it's simple. And it is some of the most basic advice that will lead you into attracting the love that you desire. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about 5 tips for making attracting your dream partner more easy. So welcome to Confidently Cherished. My name is Keshia Rice. I am a dating coach and hypnotherapist. I help women of faith learn how to heal from their unhealthy relationship patterns so that they can attract healthy, loving, successful relationships. And I want to say thank you before we get into this list. 1, for being patient with me since there was no episode last week. I know. I heard it in the DMs. I'm back. And 2, also for voting for me in the Women in Podcasting Awards. So voting is starting to wind down. So if you haven't voted for me, make sure that you head to the show notes and click on the link and do that, because I do not know the exact voting numbers, but I'm being told that it is pretty close. So if you could vote for me, and help push me ahead of the other amazing women in the relationships category, I would definitely appreciate that. So that being said, let's get into these 5, let's call them mindsets, 5 mindsets that will make it easier for you to attract your ideal partner. Number 1 is being clear on what your core values are when it comes to dating and relationships. So often when I work with women, actually it's the first thing that I do when I work with a woman on helping her attract her dream relationship, that is making a love list of the things that she wants in a partner and getting clear on what that dream spouse, dream husband looks like. And oftentimes, one of the things that I notice is that there are so many things on the list that are looks-based and so many things that are also personality-based, interest-based, hobbies-based. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but studies have shown that the most successful relationships are relationships in which both people involved have shared values. So while there's nothing wrong with looking for a man in finance with a trust fund who's 6'5" and has blue eyes, what's going to be more important than those things is a man who has the same values that you do when it comes to your faith and your faith system, the religion that you are. A man who has the same values about education, about work, about money, about gender roles. You want to find someone who shares those values. And in order to find that person, you need to know what your values are. You need to take the time to get clear on those and to really understand what your values are, what your standards are, what your deal breakers are. And you have to not be afraid to hold firm to those, which leads to number 2. In order to be in a healthy and happy relationship, you have to be willing to make the hard choices up front. Because at the end of the day, life is full of hard choices, and we are choosing our hard. A lot of the women that I work with are business owners, and for them to go from a corporate environment to starting, owning, running a successful business, they had a heart to choose from. The heart of staying in a job that they didn't like, or the heart of starting a business, putting yourself out there, having people talk crap about you because they don't think that you can do it, because they know that they can't do it, and they apply their limited mindset to you. When we talk about this year, I've lost nearly 50 pounds. And that was a choice between 2 hearts. There was a heart of not being happy with my body, feeling sluggish, feeling like I wasn't getting as much done as I wanted to, not accomplishing as much, just feeling uncomfortable in how I moved. Like, that is a particular type of hard. Well, when I made the decision to get really intentional about getting healthier, moving more, losing weight, that was a different hard. There's a lot of discipline involved in that. There's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of delayed gratification involved in that. So that was the hard that I chose. Doesn't make one decision always when you're choosing your heart. Doesn't necessarily mean that one decision is better than the other, but it means that you're choosing your heart. And when it comes to dating and relationships, I really strongly encourage you to choose your heart first, to accept being a little bit lonelier, to accept maybe having a decent amount of first dates, but not as many second and third dates, to accept having to let people down, making people a little unhappy because you turn down more dates. These things are difficult and these things are hard. I know for a lot of my clients, it can be difficult for them sometimes when before they met me, they were having a hard time meeting men. And then they start putting themselves out there, and now they're meeting more people. But now I'm also asking them to be more discerning and to turn down some of these men that they're meeting. But you want to make the hard choices up front and stick to your values, your standards, cutting off immediately anyone who doesn't meet those values and standards. Because I don't know about you, but personally, I would rather have that hard up front than the hard of settling, of being in a relationship, and 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, being the hard of, now I've spent all this time with someone, I've invested all of this time, money, energy into another person, into a relationship, and I'm realizing that I'm miserable and trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this. That is a hard that I really would never want to deal with, and I would never want to wish on anyone. The third mindset shift you need to make is to take nothing personally. At the end of the day, you are out here trying to find the best match for you. And the men you're dating are doing the same thing. So you are going to encounter men who simply aren't compatible with you. And sometimes the man is going to recognize the lack of compatibility before you do. And he'll end the relationship. This does not mean that there is something wrong with you. This does not mean that you're hosed or that you're never going to find love. You're never going to find the right relationship because you got turned down by one guy. It simply means that you put yourself out there, you met someone, the two of you explored the possibility of a relationship, and the two of you aren't right for each other. I always tell my clients that oftentimes before they meet Mr. Right, a couple of Mr. Right Nows come along. And that sounds empowering when you're doing what I mentioned in the first 2 points. You're holding firm to your standards. You're using your discernment. So someone comes, you clearly see that the values aren't a match, and you're like, okay, this is a Mr. Right Now. I'm going to respectfully bow out of this and leave. It's easy when you're the one who's doing that. But yeah, it happens sometimes that it's the person that you're dating who reaches that conclusion before you did. And that's how I want you to think about it. It's not a matter of you got dumped, but they came to that conclusion. They used their discernment before you got to that point. You know, if the relationship had lasted longer, you probably would have come to the same conclusion. But you have to learn how to not take it personally and understand that that setback, that letdown, is simply bringing you closer to someone who is for you. So, number 4 is you have to be very discerning about the advice that you're receiving. I personally think that everyone should see a therapist or see a coach and have that impartial advice in their lives. But short of that, you know, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making in relationships is taking too much advice from family and friends. And I get it. I know that these people usually love you, care about you, and all of that. At the same time, all relationships are related. And if you show me a woman who has issues in her romantic relationships, she often has issues in the other relationships in her life. And that includes family members, parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, all of that. So if you're taking relationship advice from those people, you might just be perpetuating some of the same unhealthy patterns that not only got you to where you are in this moment, but got your family members into their cycles of unhealthy relationships. Even with friends, birds of a feather flock together. So if you are having issues with communication, setting boundaries, people pleasing, all of that, it's fairly likely that you have some friends in your circle who have those same issues or are unfortunately the reciprocal. You're a people pleaser. You attracted someone who takes advantage of people a lot. And the advice they give is going to be from that filter. So I strongly recommend that if you are committed to working on your relationships, you work with a therapist or with a coach like me. If you are not ready for that step just yet, then this is where things like journaling come into play. Doing the shadow work, doing the inner work. And in that case, taking advice from yourself, getting really deep into what are the unhealthy patterns that have led you to where you are today, and taking steps to heal from those, recover from those. There are so many great journals out there. I have 2 that I will link in the show notes. One is on getting rid of self-sabotaging behaviors. The other one is on healing after a breakup. But even beyond mine, if you just go on Amazon or go to any bookstore, there are so many journals that are all about doing inner work. Like, you could search inner work journals and start from there on really getting intimate with yourself, learning what those unhealthy patterns are, breaking through with those, and taking the steps to truly become the woman that you want to be. And then the fifth mindset shift that you need to make in order to attract a healthy relationship is to stay abundant. So many women are in unhealthy relationships because of a scarcity mindset, because they believe that either A, there are no truly great men out there, or B, that the truly great men don't want them. And because of they have these beliefs, they end up either staying single forever, or they end up in terrible relationships where they just settled for someone who was okay enough. You need to remind yourself that love is all around, right? So I'm Christian myself. I work with women of faith. So that is a place for you to start. Remember the love that God has for you and start with there. Start with that. You know that you are incredibly loved just from that perspective. But you also have your self-love. And if you are feeling any sort of scarcity around relationships, I would encourage you to really spend some time with yourself, loving on yourself, doing things that would make, the child version of you happy, doing things that you really enjoy personally. I can think of getting out of one relationship in particular, and that guy, during the time that I was with him, I still am really into art. And, nowadays my husband goes to museums with me. But back then, I was in a relationship with someone who would constantly make fun of me, call me a nerd, call me names, stuff like that, whenever I did anything to explore my artsy side. So going to museums, taking a pottery class, things like that. So when he and I broke up, that was like the first thing I did, was sign up for as many art-related things as I could. And that's how I showed myself some love. So I want you to spend some time thinking about all of the love that is in your life. The love from God, the love for yourself, the love from family members who care about you, from friends. If you are generally appreciated at your job, or even if there's just one person at your job who appreciates you, if you own your own business, one client who appreciates you, I want you to think about those things and list them and write them down. And remember that, yes, it's okay to desire a partner and to have that partner add to your life and add love to your life. But to also remember that even without that person, you still have plenty of love. So these are the 5 mindset shifts you need to make in order to attract healthy love. And I want to know what you think. So I'm at Keshia Rice, KESHIARICE, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. Send me a message or screenshot this episode, post it in your stories. Let me know what you think. And also, don't forget to vote for me in the Women in Podcasting Awards. And again, thank you for those of you who have already voted. I love you so much. I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey there. So you made it all the way to the end of the episode, which means I have 2 things to say. 1, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And 2, you like me. You really like me. So I would appreciate it if you would show that like by subscribing to this podcast so that more people can hear about it and enjoy it as much as you do. And If you want to know more about any of the links that I mentioned on this episode or any guests that I've had, be sure to go to KeshiaRice.com/links. That's KeshiaRice.com/links. I can't wait to talk to you again in the next episode. So see you then.